In the frozen wilderness of the Canadian Arctic, two ships vanished without a trace. 129 men walked off into the unknown and never returned. For more than 170 years, the fate of Sir John Franklin's expedition is one of the greatest mysteries of all time. In the early 19th century, the British Empire ruled the seas, and they had their eye on the Northwest Passage, a navigable sea route connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans through the Canadian Arctic. Finding this passage promised faster trade with Asia. Dozens of expeditions have tried and failed. Their ships were crushed by ice. The crews starved or froze, and entire voyages disappeared. But by the 1840s, Britain believed that technology had finally caught up, and one man would lead them. Sir John Franklin was born in 1786. He served in the Napoleonic Wars and the War of 1812. But his overland Arctic expeditions made him famous. His second expedition into the Arctic almost ended him. 11 men died. Reports emerged of starvation and cannibalism. Franklin earned the grim nickname, the man who ate his boots. Despite this, Franklin survived, and by 1845, he was 59 years old, overweight, and not up to date with modern Arctic techniques. But he was well connected. The Admiralty gave him command of what they believed would be the most advanced polar expedition ever assembled. The expedition would sail aboard two vessels, the HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, originally built for naval warfare. These ships were reinforced with thick oak hulls, iron plating, steam engines converted from locomotives, and screw propellers that could retract into the hull. They carried 3 years of food, over 8,000 tins of preserved meat, thousands of gallons of liquor, 2 tons of tobacco, libraries, musical instruments, and even fine china. The ships were a symbol of Victorian Britain's confidence, but hidden flaws would soon emerge. The food tins were hastily soldered. Later evidence suggested that lead poisoning may have slowly affected the crew. Franklin commanded 129 officers and men, including Captain Francis Crozier of the Terror, a veteran polar explorer, and Commander James Fitzjames of the Erebus. The crew were the best the Royal Navy had to offer, experienced sailors, engineers, and ice masters. On May 19, 1845, the Erebus and Terror sailed from England. Crowds gathered along the docks. By July, the expedition reached Disco Bay. The crew sent home letters, took on final supplies, and released 5 crew members deemed unfit for service. By late July 1845, the ships pressed westward into Baffin Bay, disappearing into Lancaster Sound. This would be the last place Europeans would ever see them alive. By the summer of 1845, the Erebus and Terror made good progress through Lancaster Sound, pushing west into the Arctic archipelago. As conditions worsened, Franklin made the decision to winter near Beechey Island, a barren stretch of rock on the coast. The ships could remain close together. By September 1845, the sea froze solid around the vessels. The men prepared for a long and dark winter. Despite the harsh elements, morale remained high. The Royal Navy followed strict routines, regular meals, daily duties and cleaning, exercise on deck when weather allowed, educational lectures and readings. Franklin encouraged normalcy. On January 1, 1846, stoker John Torrington, 20, died aboard HMS Terror. He had been sick for weeks. Torrington was buried on Beechey Island, his grave marked by a simple wooden headboard. 2 more men died that winter. Seaman John Hartnell on January 4th, and William Brain, Royal Marine, on April 3rd. In 1984, over a century later, scientists exhumed the bodies at Beechey Island. What they found shocked the world. The Arctic permafrost had preserved the men nearly perfectly. Their skin was intact, their faces frozen in time. Autopsies revealed severe pneumonia, tuberculosis, and high levels of lead in their tissue. When summer returned in 1846, the Erebus and Terror broke free of the ice and sailed south and west. After leaving Beechey in the summer of 1846, the Erebus and Terror sailed south through Peel Sound, pressing towards the unknown western reaches of the Northwest Passage. By September 1846, the ships became locked in pack ice off the northwest coast of King William Island. This time, the ice did not melt. Winter closed in and temperatures plummeted. Franklin and his men would soon realize they were trapped. While trapped in the ice, Sir John Franklin died. The exact date is recorded in the Victory Point note left behind by his officers. June 11, 1847. The cause of death unknown. Franklin was 61 years old. Leadership of the expedition passed to Captain Francis Crozier of the HMS Terror and Commander James Fitzjames of HMS Erebus. The ships remained frozen through 2 consecutive winters. Supplies dwindled and morale dropped. In April 1848, Crozier and Fitzjames made a final decision. Before abandoning their ships, they left a written message inside a stone cairn at Victory Point, on the northwest coast of King William Island. The document would later become the most important artifact of the expedition. The note contained 2 messages. The first message, 1847, written by Lieutenant Graham Gore. It stated the ships had wintered at Beechey Island in 1845-46. They were now wintering off King William Island. All well. At the time, the expedition was still holding together. The second message, 1848, added a year later by Crozier and Fitzjames. The tone was radically different. Sir John Franklin was dead, as well as 9 officers and 15 men. The ships had been trapped since September 1846. The remaining 105 survivors planned to abandon the ships. Their destination was Backsfish River, hundreds of miles to the south. On April 26, 1848, the march began. The decision to abandon the boats sealed the expedition's fate. The men dragged heavy lifeboats on sledges, filled with supplies, across a frozen wasteland. They were very weak and malnourished by this point, and were heading into a territory that no European had ever crossed on foot. Behind them, the HMS Erebus and Terror remained locked in the ice, waiting for their discovery 170 years later. The survivors attempted to follow the western coast of King William Island, heading towards the Backsfish River, a long journey across some of the harshest terrain on Earth. They were burdened by heavy lifeboats mounted on sledges, filled with cooking equipment, silverware, personal belongings, books, soap, and cutlery. Many collapsed along the route. Some likely turned back towards the ships, while others pressed on until they could walk no further. Years later, Inuit testimony would become crucial in reconstructing what happened. Inuit hunters reported seeing white men dragging boats across the ice, with others falling behind, unable to continue. Men who appeared confused and desperate. They described sailors with blackened, swollen gums. These symptoms align closely with scurvy. Along the southeastern coast of King William Island, Inuit eyewitnesses found bodies laying where they fell, tents containing the dead, and shallow graves. In multiple locations, Inuit reported broken bones with cut marks, signs that flesh had been deliberately removed. The unthinkable had happened. By the time searchers reached these areas years later, skeletal remains confirmed the Inuit accounts. Examinations revealed that bones had been slit open to extract marrow, with knife marks on femurs and ribs. Initial reports were dismissed as exaggerations, and Inuit testimony was ignored. But the evidence was undeniable. The men of the Franklin expedition had resorted to cannibalism. Many artifacts were recovered from the route. One lifeboat contained 2 skeletons and a large amount of abandoned equipment, including boots, silk handkerchiefs, scented soap, sponges, slippers, hair combs, and a large amount of books, including a copy of The Vicar of Wakefield by Oliver Goldsmith, supplies that would never be used. When Sir John Franklin failed to return, his wife, Lady Jane Franklin, refused to sit idle. For years, the Arctic would be scoured by ships, sled teams, and explorers, each hoping desperately to find survivors. The Admiralty launched multiple expeditions from different directions, while Lady Jane Franklin relentlessly pursued the government to continue searching. Over the next decade, more than 30 expeditions were sent, thousands of miles of coastline were mapped, and countless relics were recovered. Ironically, these searches would accomplish what Franklin failed to do. Much of the Northwest Passage was now charted. In 1854, explorer John Ray discovered the most controversial findings. Based on Inuit testimony, he reported the Inuit described groups of dead white men, mutilated bodies, and even evidence of cannibalism. Britain reacted with outrage. Ray was discredited, attacked in the press, and largely erased from the narrative, despite being correct. In 1857, a search led by Francis Leopold McClintock set off. They discovered the Victory Point cairn message, additional skeletons and campsites, and personal items belonging to Franklin's crew. His findings confirmed Franklin's death, the abandonment of the ships, and the doomed overland march. For more than 150 years, the final resting place of the Erebus and Terror remained unknown. But one source of knowledge remained: the Inuits' oral history. Their stories describe ships being crushed or drifting south, one sinking in shallow water and the other abandoned and later reoccupied. For decades, the accounts were overlooked. In 2014, a Parks Canada expedition, guided by Inuit history, found HMS Erebus in Wilmot and Crampton Bay, south of King William Island. 2 years later, in 2016, HMS Terror was discovered, remarkably intact in Terror Bay. Confirmation that the Inuit testimony had been accurate all this time. The Franklin expedition exposed the dangers of overconfidence, but it also changed the map of the Arctic and deepened our understanding of human endurance. I want to thank y'all for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed. and we will see you on the next. Peace.